started, and we just went through some intros of like folks who are on stage, like do like Grace, Jamil, and when people are trickling in, they can do their intros.
Sounds great. Grace, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. So my name is Grace. I've been involved in the Stacks ecosystem as a venture partner at Stacks Accelerator, and recently launching this Snow Crash inspired CrashPunks NFT collection. So that should be announcing soon. We're actually having another Twitter Spaces later this evening to discuss the roadmap. So that'll be exciting. So yeah, tune in later.
Awesome. What time will that take place?
That's going to be 9 p.m. Eastern time.
Great. Jamil, do you want to go ahead?
Sure. I'm Jamil. I run stxnft.com. And well, I got into this space through Miami Coins. So I also did miamining.com and some tools around that.
Jamil's a badass. He's made a lot of great tools in a very short period of time. He's also, I think he's a CS student at Stanford. So like definitely getting some brainiacs attracted to the project.
I appreciate that, Patrick.
Dan, do you want to go ahead from Boom's side?
Yeah, Dan here from Boom. Been part of the Blockstack ecosystem for a while. Yeah, that's me.
Awesome. Do you want to tell us a little bit about Boom?
Sorry, Boom is the first NFT platform on Stacks, and we allow minting of NFTs. Marketplace is coming soon, perpetually almost, but we have a high focus on boom boxes and proof of transfer as a platform, and we're building out some new and pretty cool stuff there.
AJ?
Awesome. AJ?
Yeah, AJ, what about you?
Oh, hello, guys. Yes, my name is AJ. I just wanted to say thank you guys for hosting this. I'm very happy that you guys have allowed me the opportunity to just say hi and to be into something that is going to revolutionize the world. Thank you, Stacks.
Thanks, AJ. Yeah, I guess, Frankie, let's get it going. Thanks so much.
All right, friends, thank you for being here. Today, we are discussing nothing but facts, right? NFTs have been the talk of the town within the Stacks community this entire week. Not only did Bitcoin birds sell out within the hour, we learned that Satoshiables is making its way home to Bitcoin, and that Boom Wallet, Dan on stage, crossed over $1 million in total value locked. So yes, NFTs are on Bitcoin and already creating the type of innovation that entrepreneurs and developers alike have been waiting for. So help me welcome to the stage our host, Muneeb Ali of Stacks, Patrick Stanley, community lead of CityCoins, and the rest of our guests.
Hey everyone, awesome to be talking about Bitcoin NFTs. Yeah, definitely. Muneeb, you had a tweet a couple of days ago. It was like good morning to all the Bitcoiners who secretly want NFTs on Bitcoin, but don't want to use Ethereum, and I got like 1,000 likes. So I think there's definitely like an iceberg of folks who are interested in this, interested in building NFTs on Bitcoin. And today we have a panel of very different types of NFT projects that are building in the Stacks ecosystem. So they're anchoring their NFTs down to Bitcoin, and they just did all their intros. But I think it might make sense to do like a sort of deep dive on what they're working on, how they got into it, and their experience, what they're kind of like planning on doing. Maybe we could hop into some other questions. Yeah, that sounds awesome. I think one thing I might want to do for the audience is just give a little bit of our context about Bitcoin NFTs. Like, interestingly, especially if you're kind of like new to crypto, you wouldn't know that NFTs originated on Bitcoin, right? And that's like such a almost like a proud fact for the Bitcoin community that we should really own, that NFTs, the concept or the first NFTs, like they really originated on Bitcoin. This project called Counterparty deserves a lot of credit for this. This is like around in 2015 or something like that. I think the first ones that got famous were called rare pepes. You can do a Google search about rare pepes and maybe Fred Wilson. Fred Wilson actually blogged about it back in the day, and they were like playing around with it. But these things were built like literally on top of Bitcoin, meaning that every movement is a Bitcoin transaction. So it's like expensive, it's relatively slow, and so on. And then you can't program them. You can't basically build a marketplace very easily, or you can't do other interesting features around these NFTs. And Ethereum, I think, deserves credit for popularizing the concept, right? Like, I think the two things that they took it more to a larger audience. But then people, it's almost like they have forgotten that NFTs are easily possible on Bitcoin. Like if they were possible back in 2015, they're certainly possible today. If anything, now we have fully expressive smart contracts in the Bitcoin ecosystem, clarity language on the stacks layer that it basically gives you all the functionality you need for NFTs. Anything you can do with NFTs on Ethereum, you can actually do that here as well. But the interesting thing would be these NFTs are minted at Bitcoin blocks. The hashes of these transfers or information can actually get stored automatically on the Bitcoin blockchain. So that means that the ownership and the provenance of these NFTs are secured by Bitcoin, which is an amazing property to have because it's by far the best and most secure settlement layer. And we're kind of like seeing this organically grow very, very quickly. And I think some of the projects that you're going to hear from today, they're kind of like at the forefront of it.
Awesome. We have someone else in the community too that is not on the stage yet. Jim, I sent you a speaker invite if you would mind just accepting it. Coming up, Jim's from Chemical X. Thanks.
I also believe we have two speakers on the stage that maybe have not introduced themselves. We have Brittany and Plutus.
Hey, it's Brittany from the Stacks Foundation. We're the nonprofit arm in the Stacks ecosystem that's currently supporting builders on Stacks. So we've been very excited to see people using grants as a way to fund development of NFT marketplaces, as well as going through things like the accelerator. So happy to jump in. Thanks for having me.
Hey, yeah, it's Plutus here. We're with Byzantium, so another NFT marketplace in space, helping artists get their projects minted and launched, and also a market for collectors to buy and sell. It's been fun in the space in the past month. A lot has been happening. It's been fun talking with folks like Jamil and everyone else in the community, and just been fun seeing all the great art that's been coming out.
All right. So Grace, do you want to tell me a little bit about your project and what's going on with the launch?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Frankie. So so the NFT collection is called CrashPunks. You can find it on Twitter, CrashPunks, or it's on my Twitter as well. But basically, it's a Snow Crash inspired NFT collection. And I think within Stacks ecosystem, it's also like a book that everyone really appreciates. Hiro also being named after the main protagonist. So decided to contribute this NFT collection and really explore the functionality of NFTs on Bitcoin as well. So we are going to be announcing the roadmap later today, and let's say like 4 hours. And So it's going to be a collection of 10,000. And I don't think this says, I think there are other, maybe one or two other 10,000 collections on Stacks right now. And we're really just trying to make sure that everything's going smoothly. So that's what we're working on. We're optimizing and we're introducing batch minting functionality as well. And we are announcing aspects of the DAO that's going to be in the roadmap. So also creating some really cool new things, some partnerships with the DeFi exchanges that are on Stacks on Bitcoin right now. So some exciting news to come.
Grace, like who's the artist behind this? I feel like this artwork is just like mind blowing.
Yeah, let me know if there are any questions.
Yeah, I think Twitter Space is a little glitchy. We were wondering who the artist is. Muneeb was just saying that the artwork's pretty mind blowing.
You may have to jump into their Discord. I think they have some more information about the designs and the designer. They have a great community in there too. So if you haven't joined it yet, I highly encourage.
I don't know if anyone can hear that, but it's actually Grace who is the artist. I think she was glitching out there, but she's a very talented artist and done a brilliant job.
Amazing.
So I'm actually fairly curious on this because my feeling is in the last week, there's been a ton of NFT launches and I just feel like the news is everywhere. And so I wonder, has the functionality arrived and now artists are kind of like aping in, or have they had these ideas in the back of their mind and they're waiting for the functionality? I mean, what is the flow of all this great news that's kind of...
I have a feeling that artists have arrived before the functionality was fully there, right? Like they're building the board while kind of like already writing it. Because like frankly, I discovered a bunch of the NFTs and even the marketplaces. I think Jamil is here, who runs like stxnft.com. Like this was like maybe not the last weekend, but the weekend before. I randomly discovered this, and it's clearly like, at an early stage, and Jamil is adding features almost like every other day, and people are doing the launches in production while these things are being built, right? So I don't think it was obviously the underlying infrastructure and the blockchain launch happened this year, but in terms of tooling, I think the tooling was still getting there while we started getting like more organic traction.
Yeah, I think when I look at on the artist side, the buyers and the sellers, there is still so much unmet need. Like people are pining for things like bidding, creation, things that are well beyond what we've done today, and perhaps even beyond what the network can handle right now. So I think it's really a matter of like, there's still a huge unmet need from artists, from buyers, and from sellers that we're constantly working towards meeting.
Yeah, I think the thing that we've noticed at the foundation as well is just there's a growing sentiment around NFTs on Bitcoin for folks who haven't, ever purchased an NFT, maybe are new to it. They haven't used Ethereum for it. Stacks really brings up functionality, and I think we've seen that headline kind of come up a lot. And obviously the rise of Bitcoin and even the ability to bring NFTs that integrate with DeFi on Bitcoin through Stacks is something that's like really new and very exciting, especially for all these folks who are, used to holding Bitcoin or are familiar with it. So I think that's helpful. Also, I've seen, I think there's maybe 3 or 4 marketplaces too that exist now. So if you're looking to catch the latest drop or to mint your own NFTs, I think you have a lot of choice now that maybe wasn't there a few months ago.
Yeah, I think the tweet that Patrick was mentioning, the joke that I had about Bitcoiners who secretly want NFTs but wouldn't touch Ethereum with a 10-foot pole. Like I think there's some truth to it, right? Like obviously I was joking, but there's some truth to it that there are people out there who
just don't want to touch Ethereum for whatever reason. Like, they're part of the Bitcoin tribe, and if NFTs actually come to Bitcoin, then they can evaluate them from almost like a different perspective. Then they're actually looking at, okay, what is this thing? Am I interested in it? And they don't have that almost like a mental barrier that for me to actually explore the NFT world, first I have to cross over to the other side of the pond and go get like a Ethereum wallet and buy Ethereum. Like some people would just drop off there, like, at least in the Bitcoin community. So I think it is actually a big deal that these features are coming directly to the Bitcoin side.
I'd like to.
Dan?
Dan, we lost you there.
While Dan comes back, I'm curious, Grace mentioned earlier that she is creating a partnership with another platform within the Stacks ecosystem. And I'm kind of curious after Dan, what that relationship looks like and how does it work exactly? What is that partnership?
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, sorry. I was just saying that having worked on Boom for a while, I know that there has been a ton of pent up energy for Marketplace. And really credit, I think, goes to Jamil and Frieder for kind of unlocking it. You were asking about like why all of a sudden. I think Frieder had actually launched, Frieder from Frieder Pool, had actually launched a marketplace months and months ago. But it was limited to, we didn't have the SIP9 standards and it was limited to his monsters. But he extended that contract and we had it on testnet a while back, but it was more of like a cautionary thing that we didn't launch. And I think Jamil deserves a lot of credit for like pushing that out there and doing like that launch. But both of those folks, I think, kind of just unlocked or saw the potential and we're not afraid to like push it and kind of push the boundaries of what we could do. And I think that's kind of where it really started because the demand has been there for a long while.
Yeah, and some of the libraries that I'm very excited about, like in the coming months, they're mostly at the intersection of making these NFTs even more native to, like, for example, could you just do an auction where people are just doing Bitcoin transactions? Because we know that the Stacks supports these native swaps. They're somewhat complicated right now. They have like a 2-3 step process. But I've seen another design by Hank from OBY, Only Bitcoin EU company, and over there you could even do these swaps with a single transaction. And I think that would be pretty sweet if you are just sending a single Bitcoin, like pure Bitcoin transaction on the main Bitcoin chain, and you are purchasing an NFT, and then the NFT itself is again like secured by Bitcoin. So I think things like that, where even in the interfaces, I think I was talking to Jamil the other day about even if you enable like purchase of NFTs through Lightning, I'm sure there's like some work required to make that very smooth. But I've seen some sort of Lightning swaps with Stacks type of contracts emerge as well. So I think once these building blocks, like people start connecting them together for a more kind of like Bitcoin centric, Bitcoin native type of a user experience, I think that can be a massive unlock, because the number of people who basically just have Bitcoin in their wallet is a lot more than any other crypto capital out there. Like Bitcoin is by far the biggest thing. So if you can directly basically connect that Bitcoin capital, doesn't matter which wallet it's sitting in, with these NFT marketplaces, I think that could be a huge unlock. And I think like within the next few months, we might see like more developer tooling that tries to do that.
So earlier, Grace mentioned the partnership with the DeFi platforms, and I'm wondering if there's anyone on stage that can speak to that sort of partnership.
I mean, I can say that we've been working with Grace. I wasn't able to log in before to speak and introduce myself, but I'm one of the founders of thisisnumber1.com, and we released a collection of Chemical X back in I think July of this year, and we're currently working with Grace to get this CrashPunks collection together within the next week or so. So it's been very exciting.
Hey Jim, great to see you. And it looks like you got yourself a really nice .btc domain.
Yeah, I was. I think I saw your tweet actually. I think I was lucky enough to spot your tweet, and I got in there pretty quickly.
Yeah, people have been asking about a marketplace for the .btc domains as well, and they're really NFTs, right? And that's what they are. And I think any marketplace that supports NFT resales can also support this as well.
We're still really, this is just still the tip of the iceberg as far as NFTs is concerned. We're still, the whole world, this isn't just Stacks, but the whole world is still kind of in this cycle of learning about NFTs through art and ownership. And actually there's just so much utility that we really haven't even scratched the surface of that's yet to come. And obviously Bitcoin powering that, especially like you're saying, actual Bitcoin bidding engines will underpin all of that. And we're going to see an explosion in utility like people just really don't expect, I think.
BNS support is one of the most requested features that we get at
Jim, take
Stacks NFT. Sorry, Plutus, go ahead. You were first. All right.
I was saying, Jim, to your point, 2 years earlier. That it will be.
Well then, it definitely feels like Twitter Spaces is having some challenges today.
Yeah, it's glitching.
Okay, sounds like we're back on. Oh, go ahead, Patrick.
Jamil, I was just wanted to follow Jamil's thought about BNS spaces being highly requested. And Jamil, are you still there? Yeah. If you can you explain a little bit more about what BNS spaces are, why they're being requested, what the demand is there for?
Yeah, I think people are really excited about this concept of identity that's taken off a lot in Ethereum, right? ENS addresses are probably more widely adopted in the Ethereum ecosystem versus BNS in Bitcoin and Stacks. But people are really pining for this sense of being able to establish a consistent identity across the Bitcoin ecosystem. There are a couple technical challenges to this right now. Without going into too much detail right now, all the main marketplaces work via an escrow contract. So essentially you transfer your NFT into the marketplace and then we sell it. But for BNS, you have a one-to-one mapping between owner and domain. So we can't have the marketplace contract own multiple BNS domains. And when you look at, there is one out there that does it. I think it's called price.btc.us, and they deploy a new contract for every BNS address for sale, which is probably not a sustainable.
I've seen that. And by the way, there's now a new working group. It's very, very new, from last week, where 4 or 5 people, some of them pretty early team members of the Stacks project, they formed a new working group to work on the .btc namespace and some features there. And I think this input of telling them that, look, with this limitation of a single address owning a name, you can't have a real marketplace is really valuable. So I'll try to convey that as well. But you should go research for this working group on the naming system. And interestingly, I know the .btc names are obviously smaller and newer right now, but they are picking traction. I've actually started noticing a bunch of even Ethereum fans. They were tweeting that, what is this .btc thing? Is it even real?
Yeah, and actually it was one thing a lot of people liked about Stacks NFT when we first launched. It was just basically a way to show your the NFTs that you own. And you could just type in stxnft.com/your, Jamil.btc or whatever. And people started using that as their like links in their Twitter profiles and stuff like that. So I think people really, really love the BNS addresses and as a way of establishing their identity.
Yeah, I mean, that was super cool when I found, I can't remember who sent me the link, when you had started showing everything that was in the wallet, because it was just distinctly missing. You had to go to each platform to see what was in your wallet. And, I'm not a developer, so I was kind of shouting about it, but I didn't know how to really sort it out. I was just very excited when I first saw that was there. It's great.
Yeah, I think that thing also highlights the decentralized nature of this world, where you directly own that username, right? There's like you literally own it with a private key, and then other assets that you own on the same address can be displayed in a gallery there, right? So imagine like this is in some ways like this is your true home on the internet, like where that's how I got into NFTs as well. Like I think someone pointed me to my URL, and I was like, look, you already have some NFTs there. I think people just like gifted them or something like that. And then I just went to the gallery, and it just felt like kind of like my home on the internet, right? And I'm like, okay, wait a minute, what are these NFTs? Let me go around and try to buy things that I would want to put in my home in a way, right? And I think that's how I went on a small shopping spree.
I think there's a good comparison here with Web 2, where people are able to publish easily. Like Web 1.0, it was like open decentralized internet, very hard to actually publish. You had to have some skill. And then Web 2 came along and made it so anyone can publish. And I think NFTs have a little bit of that feeling, like that kind of breakthrough Web 2.0 feeling, but for a user-owned internet, which I think is like really, really great. One of what you were saying, Muneeb, about people are essentially posting to your wall that you own, right? When sending NFTs, and my sort of aha moment was when people were sending NFTs to the city of Miami's Stacks wallet, and to be honest, I actually didn't even know that was possible until I saw them do that. I was thinking, oh my god, this is like an eternal graffiti wall that anyone can sort of post to, and it's pretty hard to stop too.
I think the thing that sometimes people forget is that this is not just a payment channel, but it's a communication channel. The minute you've got any transaction between two wallets, you've now taken hands, as far as the network is concerned, and now you can do all sorts of things in that channel with no other giving no other information.
Totally. Do you all get the sense that like I tweeted this, but because I obviously feel this way, but you all get the sense that NFTs are like this sort of atomic building block that allow for new types of applications to get built. Like it feels like it's not just gallery posting stuff. I think there's like you could probably have like dozens of VC firms and crypto funds that invest like solely on a thesis of trying to expand NFT functionality in the ecosystem, and essentially like the ecosystem and the application layer that uses NFTs. Like I did this little thought experiment yesterday with Jack Butcher. It's on a call, and we were just going through NFT ideas, and I realized I was like, there's literally a million ideas for this. This is like a very, very vast kind of area. It's not just photos.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, this is one of the things that I've felt for a while, is that we're all it's opened everyone's eyes to it, but we're all still vastly underestimating the potential of what we can do with NFTs. You can almost break them down to binary and being switches, but it's kind of from here to there and everything in between.
I think the most fundamental unit here is like digital property, right? Like in the sense that if you look at Bitcoin, Bitcoin is fungible. So you don't get the atomic unit of digital property. Like you can't represent other things other than money. And obviously money had to be the first there for this to start making sense. But now with NFTs, I think at some point, like the name like non-fungible token, like people just want to forget about it, right? NFT is almost like I read this blog post by Jesse from Variant Fund, and I think he nailed it, that NFT is actually like a file format with strong ownership, and you can basically define anything. Like it could be like movie tickets, it could be licenses, it could be artwork, it could be anything you can think of that can have like some sort of a property right associated with it. That's the file format, right? Like it's and that's what we're experiencing, because the idea is so powerful that so many things are just like happening at once that it feels like it's just exploding, right?
I think even trivial things like email and text messages, we still, why can I be so sure that I can send you a Bitcoin transaction, but I'm still not 100% when I send you an email, and this technology changes that. I can start to think, well, I should be able to have the same expectations of any of my communications as I have with a Bitcoin transaction.
To that end, I've heard people talking about a dynamic NFT SIP. I feel like that could be an amazing thing. Have you guys been working on that, or what's the status on that?
Who's more involved with that? I feel like that's not me.
And can we explain exactly what that is?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I don't know. I don't completely understand the full technicality of it. I'll leave that to a dev. But my understanding was you'd be able to sort of read and write to it, so that it could change as it evolved. So you could have different things sort of happening to that NFT, or use it for something beyond just storing static graphical information, but actually have it be something that passes hands, and it changes as it passes hands, or other things can happen along the way.
I guess this is something that kind of needs to be part of a standard, a metadata standard, perhaps.
Yeah, to me, it sounds like the current SIP is about like almost like write once data. You just write once and that's the NFT. But this idea is more about, could you actually more dynamically update that information without changing kind of like the ownership guarantees behind it.
I think what's good about the SIP standard right now, though, is it's not very prescriptive about those things. It's not like you only have to implement these functions and that's it. You can do a lot more on top of it. And I think Dan mentioned Friedger's marketplace contract, which was a big inspiration for our marketplace too. One of the prototype he had in there was a monsters contract where you had to feed the monster every few blocks, otherwise it would die. And it was still conformant to SIP 9. And I think we've only sort of scratched the surface of like the initial level of what's possible with NFTs, even with the current technology, right? There's still so much we can do within the parameters that we're working in right now.
I feel like we should mint a NFT where you need to send a NFTs or scam transfer to the monster every 10 blocks, and if you don't do that, the monster will die. It'll be an emotional outlet for a lot of people who don't understand NFTs. They can come and yell at the monster.
I saw another one that was cool that was like every time the NFT transfers hands, it deletes some pixels. So it almost like represents like art transferring hands and degrading over time. But if you hold it, it retains its original image. And you can imagine the opposite thing too, where the more you trade it, the more it reveals the artwork rather than destroying it. So there's so many cool ideas here.
We're planning on experiential NFTs where it's more like a ticket, like what Muneeb was saying. So like imagine like in our game, like a boss battle, and we'll just make like a limited 5,000 NFTs, and only holders of the NFT can play that boss. And then so you can have people like streaming that, and no one else can play it. It would just like everyone's gonna get so jealous. But then when you're done playing the boss, if you beat him as many times as you want, just sell the NFT. And then, it can be a limited edition kind of rare thing, but a lot of people can use it. So I agree. There's a lot more to NFTs than just like JPEGs. And I think it's going to get a lot crazier as time goes on.
I love that idea. We need a bigger Twitter Spaces room. We have so many NFT creators wanting to join in, and Twitter Spaces is not allowed to bring all these guys up. Mark, from Megapont. You just joined. Can you give us a little info on who you are and what you're doing?
Hi everyone, thanks for having me. So I'm Mark from Megapont. You might have seen some of our Twitter posts this week. We recently announced that we're launching an NFT project on Stacks on the 26th of October. It's, I guess, a partnership between myself and a small tech group and a Russian pixel artist named Yura, who's been building this Megapont world for a number of years. And we kind of came across a very common story in his that you see from artists entering the NFT space, whereby they don't feel, I guess, financially rewarded for their efforts. And in instances where they are, they're hamstrung on their creativity, right? So he couldn't express, I guess, his full creative freedom. And he approached myself and said, I've been thinking of NFTs, but you know, I don't know where to launch. I don't know where to start. I don't know what to do. So we put together a small group of, I guess, people who are very interested in pushing forward Web3 cross-chain, not just on Stacks or say Ethereum or Sol or anywhere else. And we're trying to build a toolkit of how you can best launch an NFT project on any chain and adhere to sort of best practices. And we picked Stacks because I guess some nostalgia for myself being a very long-term Bitcoin holder. And also it's a really new thriving ecosystem of creators. So it was really interesting for us. And I guess the UX problems of buying NFTs on Stacks are something that we want to try and solve. And, you know, we're hoping to open source a lot of the stuff we're doing, whether that's from the rarity tools that we're building or how we're collecting addresses for the mint pass, all kinds of things like that. So yeah, happy to answer any questions if anyone's got anything they want to bring up.
Awesome. Well, welcome to the ecosystem. I feel like I can't wait for the next network upgrade so that these NFT launches can actually start doing more smoothly.
We're hoping to contribute to, I guess, build on top of what some of the people were talking about in one of the Discord spaces earlier this week, in that we've been exploring other options around how we're minting, you know, whether that's minting them all on contract deploy, so that the minting aspect is just a transfer, ensuring that we have, let's say, a lengthy time period where people on a whitelist can go ahead and mint their NFT. So that ultimately, if there is congestion, it can alleviate itself, and that you know, your early community members are assured to be able to mint an NFT, which I think is super important. The congestion is just a teething problem of the network. It doesn't particularly bother me so much. It's when you hear a story of someone, you know, missing out on a Bitcoin bird, right? They're really not happy. They missed out. They had 4 transactions that failed. So if we could solve those UX problems first and foremost, I think we'll be in a good spot.
Yeah, I think I see some Bitcoin birds in the audience right now. Maybe Abraham is here. Let's try to invite who's available.
Yep, on it.
Hey everyone, this is Obsidian with Byzantine as well. But I think, we were on a group call on Discord the other day with Dan, and Jamil was there as well. But I think a lot of the congestion problems, at least from the UX perspective, are going to be pretty easy to solve. Jamil, I saw in your last launch today, you know, there's pause buttons. And it's really easy just to watch kind of the inven pool and see how many transactions are inside the pipeline, and we can start pausing. And I think a lot of the marketplaces, at least, are all on board to kind of help users in that way, so we're not just relying on post things.
Yeah, I think that was one of the things I was saying the other day, was that the post condition is amazing and it's supposed to be a safety net, but we've kind of but we're able to use it like a crutch in so much as we're able to just not really worry about that. And actually, that's when it's become a problem. Now that people are sort of rushing in, we sort of see now that it's a problem. People just, their transactions just sit there waiting to be failed, basically. And so it's great to not only not put that pressure on the network, but also just to improve the user experience, so people know when they've got something and when they haven't. They're not waiting for 3 days to find out that they've just got a fee.
Bombay Bruiser, do you have a question? Sorry, go ahead, Muneeb.
No, I was just saying this is amazing to see. I think this is what happens when you have a truly decentralized ecosystem and almost like permissionless innovation can happen, because people feel that, hey, they can just go ahead and try to solve the problem themselves versus waiting for a company to do it. So all of the work that you guys are doing and kind of like helping the congestion problem, like that's really helpful and really awesome to see. I was not familiar with any of that, and I feel so much better now.
It really is just part of the natural evolution of a network becoming decentralized is this process. And that's why I kind of started that, or sort of initiated that chat the other day, was because it feels like eventually the ability to work as an organization sort of breaks down, because you start working independently, but then all you can really do is have conversations. If you keep that conversation going, hopefully just the sort of shared experiences and some empathy for competition and all the rest of it, it all helps the network just grow, which is what we all want our hope to improve.
One of the things I think I haven't heard a ton of people speak to, but just in the decentralization, Dan and I and Jamil and I were talking about this yesterday in Discord, and Dan and I have talked about it a lot. You know, one of the really interesting things here, I think that is interesting as compared to, like, say, Ethereum, is the fact that, like, Clarity is not compiled. So as a developer on the system, I think we're seeing two things happen, which is really good. One is, like, as soon as the innovation pops into the space, like, we can read the contracts and everybody learns. And the second thing is, I think we're going to see a lot more decentralization just in the NFTs and the marketplaces, or even the marketplace contracts, because we can actually read the code. So basically anybody can write a UI layer to hook into it. It's just a really interesting topic. I haven't seen a lot of people discuss and kind of what the implications of that are.
Yep, I think when the original designers were kind of like doing it this way, their reason was more like security, but I feel like this, it's almost like the Stacks blockchain is the best GitHub for Clarity contracts, right? Because all the real contracts are there, and you can read them and you can fork them and deploy them with their changes. And I don't think this was a benefit that we were thinking about that much. We were doing it mostly for security reasons, for safety reasons, because even in Solidity, someone can publish their contract and maybe even sign it and verify that compiled piece of code is actually this contract. In reality, people don't really do it, right? I think there were some stats that maybe there's less than 1% of contracts where the source code is available. But over here, because that's the only way to deploy, you're almost like forcing that community building, and you're forcing that GitHub type of a repository that is being created right at the blockchain level.
I think it also it's been interesting in that I feel like we have to hold ourselves to higher standards when everything's out in the open, because you can't fool anyone, right? All your code is out there, the way you're doing things, the way your contracts work. As soon as you add it, if you add a backdoor or if you add something, people are going to have their eyes on it immediately, right? So I think it allows us to hold each other to high standards and hold ourselves to high standards in the way that we do things. Because as soon as you do something in the wrong way, someone's going to point it out and come to you.
Yeah, I think that can't be understated enough. And I do think, we talked about this a lot, but I really like to see the space come into more, so people who aren't reading the smart contracts, like just having the platforms give the users more information, like the same clarity that, like, for us who are actually reading the contracts and are building on the system is very obvious to us. But we've had a lot of people drop into our Discord, and I've seen it in others, where they're asking questions that we can show them inside the UI, so kind of the whole ecosystem becomes more knowledgeable. And I do think, as we're looking at building on top of Bitcoin versus like Solana or versus Ethereum, is a huge advantage for us inside the Stacks ecosystem, where we can, like, the more information we give users, the more competitive Stacks is going to be. Kind of like, this is a place you're going to want to go over some of the other ecosystems.
Yep, I agree that I think we need to lean in on the decentralized aspects, on the transparent code, and then what can be done to almost like surface that information to users more. And I'm gonna definitely think more about it. Were we able to get Grace back? I feel like people really wanted to ask her questions, and she dropped.
I added Grace back in as a speaker. I think Twitter Spaces is being a little glitchy on how many people you can have up, so I keep moving people around to give them a spot. But Grace, you're invited back up. If you'd like to join us, we'd love to have you. Bombay Bruiser, do you have a question in the meantime?
Hey guys, yeah, thank you. Sorry, I think the glitch got me as soon as he asked me to speak. Must be the nerves. But wanted to just kind of throw it out there. Just a few thoughts around. Couldn't agree more. It's just so exciting to see everything developing. On the NFT front. I've had several conversations with, with Jamil and with Mark, and also with the Civita Guild, and just kind of curious from like a UI standpoint, from a tooling standpoint, like kind of curious, like what are your thoughts on like how the Halo project is developing on Stacks? I know it's like Civita Guild with Hysteria. I know, like curious to learn a little bit more about, like integrations via like APIs, just making like the programmability of Stacks, right, available to artists, available to platform founders, available to developers, making that available to API by like abstracting away some of the complexity of blockchains. Just curious to kind of hear your thoughts on how that's shaping up. I know there's not too much public about what the Civita Guild team is building with regards to Halo yet, but any other thoughts or any other like pointers, like just any tidbits of information as to what is being built as far as tooling and APIs for devs on Stacks?
I think from what I've seen, little I've seen of it so far, there's a couple really interesting things. One is that they're building it as an API, and I think, to be frank, none of the marketplaces right now come from a strong Clarity background. So if they're building a very strong platform that we can then build on top of, that's great. The other thing, like I would have no problem switching over from our own contract to Halos if it provided a better user experience, because in the end that's what we're striving for. And the other thing that I think was interesting is that from what I've seen, they're looking at this as a Bitcoin first thing rather than a Stacks first thing, because the idea behind that is that the purchases should go from the soundest money there is, right, which is Bitcoin. And it was a point Muneeb made as well. I think both of those aspects are important, but I don't know many details beyond that.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like, kind of, Muneeb, I'm curious to hear your thoughts on like the notion of Bitcoin being the soundest money, but in many ways, kind of Stacks being the gas, right, to enable utility, right, and bringing liquidity into the Bitcoin, the $1 trillion+ economy.
Yeah, I think the gas asset is almost like a requirement for any smart contract platform, right? So you have to pay the contracts and gas fee. But I'm actually really interested in even making the gas fee payment in STX more almost like hidden in the background for a lot of Bitcoiners, because not just because of like ideological reasons, although they play a role as well, but I think I'm thinking mostly from a UX perspective. Like there are certainly a lot more people who own Bitcoin than people who own Stacks, and if you could actually have libraries or UX where they're just doing a Bitcoin transaction to participate, at least initially, right? Like maybe there's something interesting. I was actually talking to Mark, the product person who works on the Hiro wallet and the web wallet as well. So for example, Mark wanted to have fiat onboarding potentially built into the wallet. And what I was discussing was that why don't we focus on Bitcoin onboarding instead, right? Because that's a target market. Obviously, Stacks is smart contract for Bitcoin. We want to bring this technology to a lot of Bitcoiners, and you by definition have Bitcoin, like to be a Bitcoiner. And if you can bake in the onboarding step, like instead of like trying to find an exchange where you can go and buy Stacks, maybe your onboarding happens by just sending a Bitcoin transaction. And in the background, there's a DEX, and you're doing a BTC to XBTC to STX trade, and you get some gas fee in there. And maybe you have to get a .BTC name and then go and kind of like, play around with your first NFT on a marketplace or a DEX or something like that. But thinking in terms of how to even hide the gas asset behind Bitcoin transactions, I think is a very interesting design point to explore.
It's also smart from removing any other third party, kind of, essentially removing platform risk or removing onboarding risk. You're starting a little bit more decentralized, and that's great.
Exactly.
Just avoiding fiat.
Yeah, exactly. Like, because fiat on ramps could be problematic for a lot of people, right? Like, I think if you're the type of person who doesn't have problem passing kind of like a KYC test, maybe you're fine. But there are like so many people for them, it's like hard, or they don't want to do it, or and I think just removing that, it's also like, I think by doing these type of things, you solidify your exit from Web 2, right? Because you just, as long as you have Bitcoin, now you can use Bitcoin in Web 3 or the metaverse or whatever you want to call it. And you never have to, you never need anything else, right? Like, you just forget about the way the Web 2 works. And as long as you have Bitcoin, that's the only access requirement you have to jumping into Web 3.
Yeah, when I saw some of the information come out on Halo, and that it would allow native Bitcoin transactions on top of Stacks, kind of in a way that you never really had to interact with Stacks on the front end. That's exciting, not only in the NFT space for a marketplace like Byzantium, but where that would open up NFTs to a lot of kind of Bitcoin only people, but also just all of Stacks. There are only I think 900 active daily wallets on Stacks right now. And so being able to tell anyone with Bitcoin, like Muneeb was saying, that they can do all of these things that Stacks enables with just their Bitcoin in their wallet, and transacting that way, or interacting with smart contracts that way. I think that just opens Stacks and this whole Bitcoin smart contract ecosystem up to a whole new level. So I'm excited to see what Halo has there.
I got to jump off a little bit early, but I wanted to ask Muneeb a question. There's an incredible amount of traction happening. NFTs on Bitcoin enabled by Stacks, and I'm wondering, what do you think is like number one thing to accelerate that even further, and to further grow an ecosystem where you have applications, games, community, etc. Like, what do you think is like the number one blocker or accelerant?
I've been spending a bunch of mental cycles on this exact thing of how to make the entire experience of these NFTs as Bitcoin native as possible. I feel like that's really like the big unlock here. Because right now, yes, we have a very enthusiastic community. We have community members who have done their research to understand the connection the Stacks has with Bitcoin. And they're fine with kind of like going to, stxnft.com or stacksart.com, paying in STX, because they understand that, yes, these are Bitcoin NFTs, even if it's not very visual or not doesn't feel like Bitcoin NFTs like currently. They know what's going on under the hood. Right? And I feel like the biggest unlock, at least the first one, is going to be if you make that very, very explicit to the normal audience or to Bitcoiners, where, as I said, that if you can make it more explicit that this NFT was minted at a Bitcoin block, or you can make it easy to track that here is a transfer transaction and this is how this transaction was hashed on the Bitcoin block, and here's the block, and here's the hash, and here's how you can verify that this was your NFT transaction, and this is how the hash checks out. A very visual type of tool that basically give people that sense of verification or security that this is really backed by Bitcoin. And then the onboarding stuff that we just discussed, like, can the options be in Bitcoin? Can trading, can you open up your marketplace? Like, imagine the type of liquidity you could get if you can unlock Bitcoin liquidity directly with the NFT marketplace. Like, that's like literally $1 trillion of liquidity just sitting there. And interestingly, going back to that joke tweet that I have, Bitcoiners actually don't have a lot of things to do with it. Bitcoin, right? Like, it's not like Ethereum. Like I think Ethereum deserves credit. Where if you are in that ecosystem, there's so many things you can do with your asset, like native. Right? You could trade it on a decentralized exchange. You could buy NFTs. You could like draw loans against it. And Bitcoiners literally don't have those options. So you're going after a market that is literally bigger and doesn't have any options. That's like almost like the definition of a blue ocean. And I think that's probably kind of like the biggest unlock next step that can happen.
I've been having a bit of a play with catamaran swaps, which is another thing that Friega's been building, which is it's kind of halfway there. You're able to so you have to. I mean, it's quite clunky. You have to set up a contract where you say, okay, well, if some Bitcoin arrives in this Bitcoin address, then this NFT or whatever it is will transfer from this Stacks address to that Stacks address. And it was, it's a really neat way of doing things because it's still, there are still some issues there in terms of you've got to pay for the fees on the Stacks network, and both the buyer and the seller have to have a Stacks wallet, but that's where the NFTs are stored. But it's getting there, it's stripping back the layers and making it feel like you're actually using Bitcoin.
I think there's another part of it that comes down to the UX of the new wallet coming into the space as well. So what we've typically seen is most people are coming from either Sol or Ethereum or some other NFT network. And they're really keen to learn the basics of Stacks and understand, how can I get Stacks into this Hiro wallet? And, is this the equivalent of MetaMask? And then we've had people run into issues mining a collection and wanting to understand what those errors transpire to. They're hearing things about, do I need to have high nonce, low nonce, which many of us now know should be fixed with the latest node updates. But it's just really educating people coming to your projects and being helpful to them. Otherwise, they're just going to be a wallet that drops off really quickly. So we just need to make sure they have a really good first experience.
Roots, did you have a question?
Yeah, I just wanted to contribute. I'm actually Pseudozach. Roots is my NFT project. I joined to listen, but I wanted to mention the LN swap that Muneeb was talking about, the non-custodial, trustless Lightning to Stack swaps that I developed. So that's actually on mainnet right now. So it does enable, as of now, anyone to pay with Bitcoin and buy an, let's say, Stacks NFT, right? So that's available. And that was, of course, supported by the Stack Foundation grant. So I appreciate that. So yeah, I just wanted to mention that. And then as next part of this grant, if I can continue working on it, then my plan is to also enable on-chain swaps. So that's based on submarine swaps, not catamaran. It's a different kind, but still non-custodial and trustless, and anyone can run these things. So just wanted to contribute.
That's totally amazing. Where can we play with that?
lnswap.org. So lnswap.org. Yeah, you can check it out.
Brilliant.
Thank you.
I feel like this was a little bit of a mic drop moment.
Yeah, I was just listening, but happy to contribute, and that's a great conversation here as well. Happy to listen.
I love learning a new thing every day here. It's brilliant.
It's amazing. Are you guys seeing like how I'm not even aware of like all these amazing things happening in the ecosystem? It's like truly, I think that's what's making me happy these days. Is like I feel like I can just like sit back and just relax, and the community has it in their hands now.
We just have to keep these conversations going, and then this progression will keep up.
Absolutely. Obsidian, do you have a question?
No, no, I don't.
All good. We are actually out of time. I feel like we're going to need a part 2, part 3, part 4 to this. There's too much to ask. Muneeb, do you have a little bit more time? Or are you good right now? I know it's 6 o'clock.
Yeah, I think we can maybe take one more question or something, and then I'll run.
Okay, Colin is coming up on stage. Colin, you can go ahead with your question when you are ready. Go ahead, Colin.
Hey, just want to say I've been listening in on the conversation. Really cool talk. Yeah, I've kind of been, hesitant to jump on NFTs on Ethereum and stuff like that. And, I'm excited about it being built on Bitcoin. So that's a plus for sure. I have a question about maybe a future integration with Umbrel on Node. Is there anything that could be done with that? Like being able to, I don't know, either trade or not trade, but having a marketplace of NFTs like directly on my Umbrel node. Is that possible?
Yeah, it's a great question. I actually had a chat with the Umbrella founders recently, and they're doing a bunch of work on basically creating some sort of an app store. So I don't want to release any information that's not public. They told me, generally speaking at a high level, that they want to have a decentralized app store where anyone can basically publish these applications. And we were brainstorming about things like, wouldn't it be creative, let's say the .btc names are the marketplace is available there, or people can actually name their nodes, for example. Right? And so similarly, things like maybe you can have their .btc names to Lightning addresses mapping. And because a lot of people who run these nodes, they are doing it for Lightning channels as well. So if you can have a better integration with Stacks that way. So I think those conversations are happening. And if you have these ideas, you should definitely think that team as well. They're very receptive to it. And I've at least had one chat with them about some of these ideas.
Great. Bombay Bruiser, do you have a question?
Yeah, one kind of final question. Just something that's so unique to Stacks is the proof of transfer, right? And the ability to stack and earn yield. We're seeing it play out incredibly, not only with Stacks stacking, but also with what Miami Coin has accomplished recently, and so many more future projects in that vein to come. I'm curious, something that's so unique to Stacks ecosystem, and is there a way, for all of the NFT issuers, the artists, the marketplaces to kind of get together and collaborate on ways in which maybe owners of NFTs on Bitcoin via Stacks would be able to stack their NFTs, right, to earn a yield? I don't know how that mechanism would actually play itself out, but it's just something that could be an incredible narrative, as we're looking to attract, all of that kind of NFT excitement and interest and bring it into the world of Bitcoin on Stacks, because no one else can replicate that, right? And I think proof of transfer gives us this incredible secret weapon, right, to really differentiate itself and make NFTs. Everyone's now working hard on Ethereum to give utility to their NFTs, whereas Stacks has this inherent utility, right? Just this yield earning ability that if some way, shape or form could be applied to NFTs would be just, be absolutely mind blowing.
Have you seen Boomboxes? I mean, Boomboxes is basically a sort of early iteration of that.
Yes, I have. I'm just kind of curious if there's a way to kind of replicate that across every NFT, on Stacks.
Yeah, I think it's a very, very powerful idea. I was going to mention Boomboxes as well, that they are an early iteration of this. But I do think that there can be a lot more done with this idea. I completely agree, because it's almost like a new primitive that exists in the Stacks ecosystem that doesn't exist anywhere else. The Bitcoin yield basket, and I think you can have very interesting things. You could attach almost certain yield with NFT.
We've been having some very interesting conversations with, Chemical X has been talking to Barcelona Football Club, and we've been sort of discussing some things with them. And there's, one of the ideas is the idea that season ticket holders, that those season tickets could be NFTs, and that they could actually yield to the holders throughout the season, possibly even paying for themselves.
That's incredible.
Awesome. Thanks everyone. I'm gonna jump, but these chats are amazing, and I think every week I learn something new.
Awesome. Thanks, Muneeb. We're going to stay on for just a couple more minutes, but see you on next week. We have a couple more questions coming up.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Rosard, do you have a question?
Yeah, I had a question and just kind of wanted to share some information on NFTs I'm working on with my project. So it's a platform called Gather, and it's in the esports space. So it's kind of like a layer on top of the NFT gaming space and just general gaming. And so like they're not complicated, they're simple applications of Clarity and NFTs we're working on right now is trophies. So when people are playing games, like sure, like big esports teams can afford to have like in-person events and have physical trophies, but we'd like to bring that permanence to kind of the masses. So we're implementing like NFT trophies, which is, I just think a cool way that like, you know, you can win something that will survive our platform, you know, given any sort of future. And then there's also, we want to use Clarity contracts to do payouts. And so that could be payouts in stacks, it could be payouts in NFTs people upload as an organizer and then distribute based on like rules we've set up in the contract. And so that's just something I want to share because, you know, NFT for Bitcoin. And by the way, thanks for holding these Twitter spaces. They've been like just so awesome to see the community around this. And it's just given me a lot of confidence to like jump into this head first and just start building. And so I guess my question would be like, where do you see the NFT gaming space evolving, both I guess on Stacks and just the ecosystem in general? Because I think it's a super cool development, and I think it brings like, you know, a level of permanence to gaming and you know, things that, you know, in the web that don't really have a permanence quite yet. But I think it's a very cool space, and I'm watching it pretty closely. If anyone has any thoughts on that?
Yeah, Rodrigo, do you want to chat to that point?
I mean, yeah. I mean, we're planning, you know, a lot of things. I mean, I think that the obvious first, you know, like application of NFTs in gaming is the easy stuff like skins, you know, weapon skins, character skins, things like that. We're developing real-time algorithms. You can think of them as skins for the Magic system. You know, so those will all be NFTs, and those are things that we randomly generate. But then they're real-time algorithms that affect the game world when you equip them. But we think that the next level is going to be things that are more like the dynamic NFT idea that Drew was talking about earlier, where you could have like, you know, a piece of land represented as an NFT that can change over time. So then the things that you do to that land, you know, affect the NFT itself, and that's reflected in like the properties and the values of the NFT. So I think that's still like very early in the like evolution of NFTs, and we're just doing the really simple stuff now. You know, JPEGs and skins are very simple and obvious, but this is going to just, I think, develop into something much cooler. Like I mentioned earlier, we're working on experience-based NFTs, where it's more like the NFTs that gets you into a certain experience, like a side quest or a boss battle or something else that's special. That's not just like a static thing that you equip, but like an experience in time that you can then repeat over and over, or then once you're done with it, sell to someone else or trade it or rent it out or whatever it is you want to do. So yeah, I mean, we definitely think that there's just lots of cool stuff coming down the pipeline, and you know, I think a year from now, the NFT marketplace is going to look a lot different.
Thank you.
Great idea on the trophies too. That's killer. Cool. Any other questions or points to add? Drew, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, I just want to add something quickly. I'm currently working on developing something around community, and I know a lot of these NFT projects, CrashPunks is a great example, but also Moonray are really starting to grow these communities, and sort of linking your wallet to Discord and doing some community-related things is of great interest to me. So anyone in any of these projects, if you want to, you know, my DMs are open. I would just say, you know, reach out to me. I'd love to chat and hear your experiences and your needs and stuff.
Awesome, thanks. Any other questions or points from the group? Cool.
All right, friends. Next week on Crypto Internet, Muneeb and Patrick are joined with Dan Held and the founders of Alex and Archidaico as they discuss their launches on the Stacks mainnet. Now, my feeling is that you do not want to miss this conversation. Until then, have a beautiful week. Bye, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.